All right, boys and girls, welcome back to the radio show. I'm Scott Horton. Our first guest on the show today is Jeff Paterson from CourageToResist.org. Welcome to the show, Jeff. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I really appreciate you joining us today. And obviously the subject matter is the American hero, Bradley Manning. But before we talk about Bradley Manning, I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about Courage to Resist. Maybe if you could mention Ehren Watada and some of the other stories, some of the other soldiers you guys have helped out. Maybe even give a word out to any active duty soldiers who might be listening to the show today, what they can do to resist.
Well, absolutely. Courage to Resist started in about 2004 when the first U.S. Marine and service person refused to fight in Iraq. His name was Lance Corporal Stephen Funk out here in the San Francisco Bay Area. We rallied to support Stephen in refusing to fight in Iraq and paid for his legal expenses. And then in 2006, Courage to Resist sort of began in earnest as a full-time project when Lieutenant Ehren Watada out of Fort Lewis, south of Seattle, took a stand that he would refuse to deploy to Iraq, specifically because he believed that the war in Iraq was illegal and the orders as such were illegal orders. We organized thousands of people to rally around the country. We raised tens of thousands of dollars to pay for his all of his legal expenses. And at the end of the day, Ehren Watada never did a single day in jail because of our efforts nationwide, internationally, to basically make the military realize that it wasn't in their best interest to make an example out of Ehren Watada because he was becoming a different kind of example of resistance and telling the truth about what was going on in Iraq and the legality of that situation.
Yeah, it just goes to show it's all about PR, not about law. But, let me ask you this about Ehren because I really don't know too much about the rest of these cases, honestly. But I know about Ehren Watada that his argument was, he was an officer. And his argument, I talked to his father on the show a couple of times a couple of years back, and his argument was not just, look, I don't want to go because I don't want to commit war crimes and I don't want to participate in an illegal war. In fact, I don't even think he said that. What he said was, I will not lead men into battle in an illegal war. I will not be responsible for having enlisted men under me commit war crimes. No deal. They're my men, and I will not use them to commit illegal acts in an illegal war. So send me to prison if that's what you got to do.
Well, I think that was his core message. At the core, it was that the war in Iraq was illegal. So as a leader, he wasn't going to do that. And since then, many enlisted people have said the same thing, that they refused to deploy to Iraq because the war was illegitimate. Now, when you talk about, we've worked with at least a couple hundred public objectors to the Iraq and Afghanistan war since then. Many of these individuals have gone to Canada. Next week in Canadian Parliament, we'll be debating a binding resolution on whether to allow those war resistors to stay up in Canada. There's a couple hundred of them. And we deal with conscientious objectors of all kinds. Right now we're dealing with the conscientious objector who became a Buddhist as a direct result of the death and literally having blood on his hands in Afghanistan. And then we're also dealing with a Muslim conscientious objector who, for the first time, is trying to articulate how he's, no longer going to work as an organized a member of the military as a Muslim, trying to redefine sort of what people understand about that religion. So we don't really take a position on, some people have better reasons than others. We support the people who refuse to fight, and people have many different personal and political reasons for that stand.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, tell me a little bit about that resolution in Canada that their parliament is talking about. Does it have much support?
Well, I think it's going to be a very close resolution. The Canadian Parliament has already twice passed non-binding advisory resolutions to try to convince the Harper government to allow the U.S. Iraq war resistors to stay in Canada. And twice we've won that vote, and twice the conservative Harper government has basically ignored them. So at this point, now there is Bill C-440 that's coming up for debate and vote next week. And if passed, that will be a binding resolution on the government for the first time. It's going to be very close, though. It could go down in flames by one or two votes, or it could pass by one or two votes, because the Harper government's now putting pressure on some of the middle of the road supporters that there could be consequences if they vote yes, in opposition to the ruling party's wishes. So we'll see what happens.
All right, everybody, it's Jeff Paterson from Courage to Resist. They're organized to help people, I guess, if a soldier comes to you and says, hey, man, I'm in the Army, but I want out. Can you help me through the process to obtain conscientious objector status? You guys are helpful for that, right?
Well, it's true, but most of the people we deal with aren't conscientious objectors. They're basically broken soldiers that have deployed 1, 2, 3, 4 times, have spent years in Iraq or Afghanistan, have mounting hardship problems, are physically injured, are mentally injured, and the military is so desperate that they're not going to let those guys go. They're going to force them for one more deployment, and that's usually when they get into a breaking point. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about post-traumatic stress disorder. We're talking about hardship. We're talking about physical medical injuries that would have been a quick discharge a couple of years ago, but now people are being told to suck it up and quit your whining and strap on your pack and go back one more time. So it's conscientious objection, and it's a lot more.
And is there a phone number that people can call, or just couragetoresist.org?
People should definitely check out couragetoresist.org, and we have profiles of over 100, 200 folks that we've worked with. And people can call 510-488-3559 and talk to us directly.
That's 510-388-4559 for Courage to Resist. 510-388-4559. And now we still got a couple of minutes before the first break here to get into the story of Bradley Manning. So, I don't know, maybe someone just got back from vacation to Aruba or something, and they have no idea who Bradley Manning is. Why don't you give us the lowdown on this kid's story here real quick, and then when we come back from the break, we'll talk about what you're doing about it.
Bradley Manning is 22 years old. He's an Army intelligence analyst. He deployed to Iraq as an intelligence analyst. And while stationed in Iraq and looking over intelligence reports from the battlefield, he came across a video that depicts a helicopter, U.S. helicopter gunship, killing 11 Iraqis and significantly wounding 2 children. And it appeared to be outside of the normal rules of engagement, meaning these individuals that were being shot down on the street were no threat to any U.S. forces. They didn't look like any kind of organized militia. They weren't in the process of attacking anybody, anything like that. But they were, gunned down from a mile in the sky by an Apache helicopter. Allegedly, Bradley released this video to the WikiLeaks website, who then reposted it and called it the collateral murder video. And millions of people have seen this video and have basically been very outraged, not only by the killings it depicts, but by the callousness of how these lives are being dispatched. Literally video game-esque. Bradley is now facing over 50 years in prison, mainly for this video. The U.S. government believes that Bradley is also responsible for releasing 90,000 battlefield reports from Afghanistan. So we got a court-martial coming up, and we're doing everything we can to support him.
All right, everybody, it's Jeff Paterson from CourageToResist.org. We're now on the case of young Bradley Manning, the American hero, and we'll be back after this.